Hello guys, today in this session I'll be going to start one of the important feature of JDK 1.8, that is Lambda expression. So before going ahead, so let's discuss the few keyest objective of the JDK 1.8. That is, first main objective we achieved by using JDK 1.8 features, that is simplifies the programming. Okay, so when we utilize this all features, so we are going to simplify our programming. Okay, this features enables the functional programming and parallel programming. So these three main objective we achieved by using above features. Okay, now let's discuss about the lambda expression. Okay, and what are the uses of this lambda expression? So let me write some points while discussing. So first main objective, so first main use of this lambda expression, it enables the functional programming in our Java. So what is the purpose behind implementing this lambda expression? So that is the enabling the functional in the functional programming in Java. What it is? Functional programming in Java. Okay, so this is the first use of this lambda expression. What will be the second use of this lambda expression? So by using this lambda expression, we are going to write more readable, maintainable, and clean and concise code. Okay, so what it is? Readable, clean, and concise code. Okay, concise. So we can write readable, clean and concise code by using the lambda expression. That means we can achieve or we can reduce the code length. Okay, when we use a lambda expression, so I'll be going to show you some examples how we are going to reduce the length of codes, length of lines. So what is the so we can achieve the 100 line of code into a 10 line. So how we can do? So let's discuss this. Apart from that, there is third main advantage and main use of this lambda expression is it enables the parallel programming. Okay, parallel programming in Java. Okay, what it is? It is the parallel programming in Java. Okay, so this feature we achieved, or this uses we can explore by using the lambda expression. Okay, so now let's discuss the what is lambda expression and what are the uses of this and how to create the lambda expression and how to convert the big methods into the lambda expression. So let's talk about it. So basically I'll be going to talk what is lambda. Okay. So basically lambda is the anonymous function. What it is? It is the anonymous function. And you know, like if you are aware about the anonymous classes, in that case you must know like what is anonymous class and how to declare the anonymous class. Okay, so let's talk about the anonymous function, what it is. Okay, a function which does not have the name, that means a function it is nameless. Okay, nameless. Second criteria is what to declare the anonymous function, that is a function which does not have the return type. Return type. Okay, without return type. I'll be going to write something like this: without return type. Then third criteria is like a function which does not have the any modifier, without modifier. Sorry. Okay, so this is the third criteria here. So these are the three criteria we can use to declare the lambda expression or to declare the anonymous function. Okay, and once we declare this anonymous function, so we can convert this anonymous function into the lambda. Okay, let's see how we can do that. So let me write one lambda here. So let's write some practical code here, and let's understand the how it works and all things. So now I'm going to write one function. So that function I'm going to write one demo function name, and we are going to convert that function into the anonymous function, and that anonymous function we are going to convert into the lambda expression. Let's write some function here, public void test. So I have written this function. Let me, okay. So now this is the function. Inside this function, let me write SOP statement, that is hello, and close that function. So now convert this function into the anonymous function. So what is the criteria to declare the anonymous function? So first criteria is without name. Okay. Second criteria is without any return type. Third criteria is without any modifier. So remove the public. Now this becomes a anonymous function. Now let's convert this function into the lambda expression. To convert it into the lambda expression, we have to use the symbol. So this symbol represents the lambda. So in Java, so you can use this symbol to represent the lambda expression. So now this is the lambda expression. So let's wrap these lines into a single line. Okay, so this is the, sorry, don't wrap. Okay, so this is the lambda expression. Now let's discuss some rules here. What are the rules and how we can write, or how we can write those uh, rules in lambda expressions. Yeah, so let's discuss. I'll be going to write one point here. So what it is, yeah, yeah. So let's write here. First rule. Okay, what is this first rule? So in your lambda expression, if you have, okay, in your lambda expression, if you have more than one statement, okay, so if you can see, I have only one statement, okay, but rule says if you have more than one statement, in that case curly braces are required. Okay, in that case curly braces are required. Correct? So this is the first rule. But if we don't have multiple lines of code inside our lambda expression, then what is the rule for that? Then in that case, if we don't have multiple line, in that case curly braces are curly braces are okay. What I am going to talk here, so more than one line statement, okay, if in your lambda expression if you have more than one line of statement, in that case you must have to write the curly braces. We have to wrap those statement inside your curly braces. Like if we talk about practically, suppose I have, this is the lambda, this is the lambda, and I have two lines. In that case we must have the curly braces. Suppose if I don't have the multiple lines, I have only one line. In that case, curly braces are optional. So no needed to write these curly braces. You can write like this. Okay. In this scenario, we can write like this. So this is the one statement. Correct. And for multiple statement, what is the rule? Rule says curly braces are required. Let me write properly here, then you will get proper idea. Yeah. So this lambda having the multiple statement, in that case, for more statement, syntax like this. Text like this. Now talk about the second rule. Okay, talk about the second rule, what it is, what is the second rule says, and all things. So we're going to talk about it. Yeah, before going to second rule, let's understand the and one more example here and convert that into the lambda expression. Okay, let me write one more example here, that is that function calculate the sum of two numbers. Okay, so let me write that function which is responsible to calculate the sum of two numbers, void and sum. So int a comma int b. So this is the syntax for your method. So here I'll be going to print the SOP statement, that sum of two numbers, that is a plus b. So this is the function. Now let's convert this function into the lambda expression. First convert this function into the anonymous function, and then you can just add the lambda sign, then it will be a lambda expression. So what does says the anonymous function? Without any name, that means nameless, without return type, without modifier. So this is called the anonymous function. Convert this function into the lambda, you can use the lambda sign. So this is the lambda sign. So now you can see this is our lambda expression. So what above rule says? Above rule says, like, if we have more than one line, then curly braces are required, and if we don't have more than one line, and then in that case curly braces are optional. So you can use or you cannot use, it's up to you. So I'll be going to remove that. Okay, so this is the above rule fulfillment. Okay, then let's talk about the second rule. What is the second rule here? Second rule says, so if you don't want to pass the data type, okay, if you don't pass the data type for these parameters in lambda expression, in that case, like, you cannot pass, like, it's up to you. If you want to pass, you can pass the data type, and if you don't want to pass it, you can't. Okay, you can do whatever you can. So here, not required to pass data types. Why? Because if we remove the data type here, if we remove the data type, then compiler will automatically guess the data type. Okay, here not required to, let me write here like that. Okay, not required to pass data type. Okay, not required to pass data type, because who is responsible to like guess the data type for those parameters? The responsibility takes care by the compiler, because compiler is taken care about this, is responsible to guess the data type. Okay, so who is responsible? Compiler is responsible to guess the data type. So this is the second rule. Okay, what rule says? The data type here, data type is not required to pass. So compiler will automatically guess the data type. So let me just convert this as per the rule. Let me remove the data types. Okay. So this is the statement after applying the this rule. Okay. Now let's talk about the next rules. So what are the next rule we have? Let me write one of the example again here to explain the next rule. So let's write one example to calculate the square root. Okay, I have one function here that returns the square root. So int for returning the square root and name of the function like square root. Okay, so this is a function and this function accepts the one parameter that name is n. So for that n we are going to or we have to calculate the square. Okay, so return n into n. So this is the formula to calculate the square root. Now let's convert this function into the anonymous function and then we can convert this function into the lambda. Remove the name first without nameless, without in return type, without modifier. Okay, convert this into the lambda. Okay, now say for this rule. So till here what we understand, if we have only one statement, in that case, okay, in that case the curly braces are optional, but there is one loophole. So what it is, if we have normal statements, in that case curly braces are optional. Okay, if we have normal statement like system.out.println, in that case curly braces are optional. But if you have return statement, in that case curly braces are mandatory. Okay, if you are returning, okay, if you are returning something from lambda, then a return statement is mandatory. Mandatory. Okay, return statement is mandatory. Got it now? So what I am going to like explain you. So if you have like if you are returning something from the lambda expression, then in that case return statement is mandatory. But when you have when you have curly braces, okay, when you use curly braces, then you have to use the curly return statement mandatory. Okay, but I'm not going to use the curly braces here. In that case return statement is optional, so you can just do like this. Remove these curly braces, remove this. Yeah, this will be the file like without curly braces. But if you are using curly braces and inside it if you are returning something, then return statement is mandatory. Okay, in that case return statement is mandatory. Statement is mandatory. Okay, and here without curly braces, then return statement is not mandatory, so you can just simply return. Let's remove the data type as well, so then it's not required to add the data type. Again there is one rule. Now if you can see, you have this parenthesis, correct, but this parenthesis is also not required. When this parenthesis are not required, if you have only one parameter, only one parameter in lambda, okay, if you have only one parameter, in that case the parentheses are optional. Okay, if you have only one parameter, in that case parentheses are optional. Then what is the version you can write? You can write like this. So this is the way you can follow this rule. Okay, then there is one rule. So if you can see, so there is one. Okay, so this is the rule you can achieve by using the this statement. Okay, without, so if you have only one parameter, then don't use the parenthesis. So parentheses are optional. So if you want to use, if you don't, you can't. Okay, you cannot. So that is the way. Let's talk about the third rule. I'll be going to take one simple example: public void test. Okay, so let's convert this into the, let me write the SOP statement which prints the hello. Let me close it and let me close this function. Now let's convert this function into the anonymous function. Now let me convert this here, this here, this here. So remove this all not required and convert this into the lambda expression. Now see, yeah, this is your lambda expression. Now what it say? If you have only single statement, so directly remove the that curly braces are optional. Now what does above rule says? If you have only one parameter, then parentheses are optional. But in that case, if you can see, we don't have any parameter. Okay, in that case, if you can see, we don't have any parameter. In that case, the parentheses are mandatory. Okay, the parentheses are mandatory. Here, in that case, this parentheses are correct. So now these parentheses are mandatory. Let me discuss the another case. This, suppose if you have only one parameter, in that case parentheses are optional. Okay, now let's talk about the more than one parameter. If you have n comma, sorry, a comma b, so these two, in that case parentheses are mandatory. Okay, in that case parentheses are mandatory, because if we have more than one parameter, in that case we must have parentheses. So these are the cases we correct. So this is the way we can write the anonymous function, and we can convert this anonymous function into the lambda expression. Okay, so now let's conclude the some points. So what are the points? So first, let me write the line here. Okay, what is the first conclusion here? So if you have, okay, in your lambda, in your lambda, in lambda have only one statement, then curly braces curly are optional. This is the first rule. What will be the example here? So let me take the example like this. So this is a lambda expression. So in that case, we can write like this. Hello. So this is the way you can do. Correct? Because in this lambda we have only this one statement, SOP statement. This is the first rule. Now let's talk about the second rule. What it is? What is the second rule? Second rule says if in your lambda we are passing some parameters. Okay, if in your lambda we are passing some parameter like this, int a comma int p. So these are the parameters if you are passing, and if you using some sop a plus b or something. So this is your lambda expression. Now if you can think here, this data type not required to pass it, because if we are not passing any data type here as a type of this one, this lambda, then automatically compiler will guess the data type for these two variables. That's why the second rule says no required to pass data type for lambda parameter. Okay, so for the lambda parameters, no required to pass the data type. Compiler will automatically guess the data type for them. Okay, now let's talk about the third rule. What is the third rule here? The third rule says if in your lambda, okay, in your lambda, if you are, okay, if you are returning something, in that case, return statement must be there. Okay, if you are returning something from lambda, then return statement must be there. Okay, like suppose I will be going to return something addition of two numbers, so this is the lambda I'm going to write here. Okay, now let's return a plus b. So this return statement must be there. If you are returning something here, return statement must be there. Then what is the sub rule here? What is the sub rule here? Sub rule says if you have curly braces, if you use a curly braces, then return statement must be there. Okay, return statement must be there, but you don't use you if we don't use curly braces, in that case return statement is not mandatory. You can just write a plus b. Okay, in that case statement, you can just return something like this, like this is my lambda which returns the addition of two numbers, that is a comma b. This is lambda expression. You can just do a plus b. So here no need to write something like this return. Okay, so when we write this return statement, if we use the curly braces, okay, if we something written from the lambda, then and if you uses the curly braces, okay, then return statement must be there. So we must have to use the return statement. But in the case of without curly braces, not required to use the return statement. Correct? So this is a, like this is the third case we have to follow. Now let's talk about the fourth case. What will be the fourth case here? So as I discuss here, if you can say, so these are the things. So what about the parenthesis? Now if you have only one parameter, okay, only one parameter, then parentheses theses are optional, okay, like something like this. So I have written this all statement here. Like first one is, in the first case, let me remove this. If we have something like this, so in that case parentheses are optional. Like suppose saying I'll be going to write a particular, yeah, this is a lambda expression which is used to calculate the square root of the n. Okay, in that case this so we have only one parameter. In that case this parentheses are not required, then we can convert this like this. Okay, in that case these parentheses are optional. But see, if you have, the sub rule says if we have more than one parameter, in that case parentheses are required. Okay, we must require parentheses when we have this case. If you have multiple parameters, yeah. Then let's talk about the third case. If we don't have any parameter, in that case parameters are required. Like suppose I am going to write one simple lambda, so it does not have any parameter. Let's write the SOP, give the hello. So now if you can see here, so this is the way, okay, this is the way you can write the lambda without parameter. But here parentheses are required because we don't have any parameter. In that case parentheses are required. So if you can see here, if you have only one parameter, so in that case parentheses are optional. If you have more than one parameter, then parentheses are mandatory. And if you have any, if we don't have any parentheses, if we don't have any parameter, in that case we must have to like parentheses we required here. So these are the cases. Now let's talk about the way. So now we are able to write the lambda expression. We are able to convert any method into the lambda expression. So let's talk about the one of the example. So now public, so I'll be going to write the one method which is used to return the length of string, given string. Public int, it is a return type, and give the name like length, like something I will be giving str length. So this is my function. Let me pass the string here str. Now let's return the string length by using the that function name, like return str dot length function in a string class. So by using this function we can calculate the length of string. Now simply let's convert this function into the anonymous function first. Okay, so what is the anonymous function rule? First rule is like nameless, remove the name. Second rule is like without any return type, remove the return type. Without any modifier, remove it. So this is our anonymous function. So convert this anonymous function into the lambda, so by using this notation. So that is the hyphen, and that is less than, sorry, that sign. Okay, now if you can see, we can apply above rule on this lambda expression. Okay, so what is first rule? First rule says if you have only one line of code inside the curly braces or inside your lambda except return, then this curly braces are optional. Okay, so this rule is not applicable here because we have this statement with return statement. Okay, so we have only one statement with a return statement, then this rule is not applicable for this uh, lambda here. Then let's talk about the second rule, data type. So data type is not required, compiler will automatically guess the data type. Let's talk about the rule of parenthesis. If you have only one parameter, in that case parentheses are optional. Okay, remove it. Now let's talk about the return statement. Okay, so if you have curly braces, then return statement is mandatory, and if you want to remove the curly braces, then in that case return statement is not required. Okay, you can do like this. Now if you can see here, this is a way we have wrapped this wrap this function into the one line. So 3 line of code we wrap into a one line. So that is the way we can follow to convert our methods into the anonymous function and anonymous function into the lambda expression. Now let's talk about like how, so we are able to write the lambda expression now, but how to call this lambda expression, where to call this lambda expression. So let's talk about this. So to call this lambda expression, we have one concept, one feature of JDK 1.8, that is functional interfaces. Okay, so by using these functional interfaces, we can call these lambda expressions. So I'll be going to discuss this feature in the next session. So thank you guys. So and keep watching this tutorial, and let's understand the practical oriented this session. So whatever rules, whatever things I have discussed here, so in the further session I'll be going to discuss in IntelliJ with some practical examples. So thank you guys, thank you for watching this session.